not really, because I didn't write this question. But I'm assuming. Yeah. So Superman syndrome, and I'm assuming it says men. So yeah, I can speak on this.
Yes, you can.
Because the brothers typically, they act like they're Superman.
Yeah, I think that
I try to be intersectional in the way I speak. I try to not use gender terms, and I think that when we focus too much on traditional, we tend to ignore and erase experiences that people have in our community. So, as a man, I've been socialized to be a provider and to be proud of myself as a provider and to identify as a provider. But if we're going to keep it a buck, for a lot of reasons we could get into, sociological, political, women particularly in our communities, have had to step into the role of the provider in ways that they never had to. Well, not never had to, but in ways that have never been recognized before. And so while the question is specific to men, I do believe it can apply to everybody. That if you're the type of person that needs to provide and doesn't leave room for any excuse, that that you could sometimes be on that treadmill and not pay attention. If you're working so hard to provide that you're working yourself into the grave, then you're not really doing a good job of providing. And I think that specifically as men, we have to be more willing to say that there's nothing wrong with having emotions or being emotional. There's nothing wrong with being soft. There's nothing wrong with being fragile. Because our community faces disproportionate poverty and violence, we look at these things as completely negative. There's no room to be soft, to be fragile, to show tears. Men don't cry, men don't feel. And I think that can be destructive. And so, I think it's about using that intellect, using that logic to know when it's time to be emotionally logical. And I think that's very difficult for a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of women too. And again, I'm trying to be cautious with my words here because, again, I'm not the expert on these subjects. I can only speak from my experience. But for me, as I've grown, I see misogynistic attitudes in our communities. I see homophobic attitudes in our communities that lead to a certain brand of toxicity that can be very destructive in our homes. That sort of cutting off your emotions and not appreciating that you can be fragile and that you have the capacity to be harmed makes you want to respond in a violent way sometimes. And that might not be your intention, but again, when it comes to oppression, intentions don't matter, only results do. And because as men, when we live in a patriarchal system, we are automatically born as members of an oppressor group. And I think we have to be cognizant of that and be careful and put extra emphasis on making sure that we don't go down that path.
That reminds me of something I heard. This is the second time I've talked about this. I was in a meeting and Norbert Burroughs said this over at Flagstaff. We were in one of those rooms and he talked about toxic masculinity. And he talked about it just stuck with me because I've talked about this 2-3 times since then. But he talked about the fact that in our society, men are not allowed to have the same feelings that you discussed. But what they are allowed to do is show aggression, right? So he said a lot of times, a young man might have been, for instance, embarrassed about something. But rather than show his embarrassment, he gonna come out, and that's okay. We see him angry, and anger is okay. When really, all it was he was embarrassed, but he doesn't have the space to just say, wow, that embarrassed me. You understand what I'm saying? So oftentimes our communities are ruled by this toxic masculinity because they don't they don't there's no plethora of emotion that they can delve into. They just have to stay with whatever looks aggressive, whatever that's accepted, but nothing else is when it comes to men. And I just thought, as a woman, I'm listening, saying, "Damn, that's really unfair," because I hadn't really thought about it like that, you know? Yeah. Okay. Anybody have a question for Talib? Is it Talib or Talib? Talib. Okay. Come on, baby.
I didn't grow up eating salads. I had to learn how to do that. I didn't grow up eating salads. Yeah. I mean, my parents had vegetables, but we didn't have salads. I didn't grow up working out. You know, I was athletic when I was young. I played baseball, but I didn't have, it wasn't like a workout routine or regimen that I had, and I had to learn how to do that. Like I said earlier, I still drink and smoke, but I had to cut that down a lot. I think just learning how to be present, the pandemic taught me that a lot of times I wasn't present, I was an autopilot. And I learned that because doing 200 shows a year, just it's a pattern, it's a rhythm. It's just what I do. And so I developed, what I learned in retrospect was I learned how to deliver without being present. I have a song, Get By, is a song, my biggest record. I could be on stage doing this song and thinking about what I'm going to order for room service. Or think about something I wrote on Twitter or something, just not really there, but still delivering in a way where the audience is clapping and cheering and even giving me a standing ovation. And I wasn't even there. And I learned that because after not performing for months, and then getting back on stage after those first few months of COVID, my big hit records, I couldn't remember the words to them. And it's like, well, how was I doing this if I couldn't even remember the words? And it's just like, because I wasn't there. And so now when I take shows, I don't do shows, I don't think I'm ever going to do 200 shows a year again. But now I'm trying to be very intentional about the shows I take and trying to be a lot more present with the audience. Just because I can deliver that way doesn't mean that I should, and I feel like it's a better experience for everybody if I pull back.
Okay, so the next question is, what is your influence? In your own words, what do you feel your influence is to the world? For the world. What is yours?
But that's, I think, more for other people to speak on, because I'm biased if I look at myself. But what I would like it to be is to be a connector. I like the fact that I connect a lot of different artists and a lot of different genres and a lot of different generations in my music. And to show an example that you can be positive, conscious, socially aware, pro-Black, and involved in the community, and still be successful and relevant on a mainstream level. And to show people that, it's sexy to complain about what we don't like or what we're not getting, but I think that it's more efficient to celebrate what we do like and what we are getting. And when you think about, hip-hop music, the trap stuff and the gangster stuff and the sexist stuff, and this is stuff that seemingly runs the airwaves, and it's easier for capitalism to sell this stuff to us, but that's not the stuff that resonates with us as people. I mean, you heard how the crowd responded when you said you weren't that familiar with Kendrick Lamar. He arguably is the most popular rapper. That wasn't no shade. I'm saying that to say that, when you think about, there's artists who are going to have a hit record. There's artists going to have the #1 jam in the club. We're going to pop bottles to. But when you think about the artists that resonate with the people, you're talking about a Miss Hill, or you're talking about a Nas, or you're talking about a Kendrick Lamar, or J. Cole, or Outkast, or, these are artists that, no one's talking about Jaquan, everybody in the club get tips. 2004, it's the biggest record out. I don't mean to throw no shade at Jaquan. He did shade me in an interview. That's why I keep coming back to that example. Because I remember reading that interview in 2004 and be like, okay, you feel this way in 2004, Jaquan, but see me in 2022. And we used to people still talk about you. I'm sure Jaquan is doing fine. But the point I'm making is that it's very seductive to focus on the negative when it's like, if you focus on the positive, that's what wins in the long run.
All right, anybody else?
Is there a musician or artist, old or new, that you would like to work with that you haven't worked with yet?
I mean, I'm sure there's plenty. Off the top of my head, I was gonna say Premiere, but I forgot I did that last year. But York would be someone I would love to work with. I'm blessed in as far as the hip hop space and black music, most of the people I wanted to work with, I've had an opportunity to work with, which is an amazing blessing. I'll say Jill Scott is someone who's a friend of mine, a contemporary, that I haven't actually been on a song with. Somebody I want to work with.
So we'll look for that in 2023.
Yeah. You're going to be there for that. You're going to be there for that.
What is your absolute perfect creative space? When I say that, I'm thinking about like if I get ready to do, I just need people out of my way, out of my airways. When I get ready to, I don't care where, sometimes when I get on my computer, that's my creative space. When I get on a computer and I start reading documents, that's sexy to me, documents. Give me an Excel sheet, a cup of coffee, and no noise. Let me make a flyer. I'm so serious. That's not, y'all. And don't let me feel like doing a poem, Rose. Some good lyrics is better than sex. All of us have, my point is, I'm being silly, but my point is, there's a certain space I need for that though. I can't, because when I feel it coming down, when I feel the sprite coming down, I don't need no noise, unless I'm at I can go to a coffee shop, I can go to the Alley Cat, right? As long as people don't talk to me too much, I can get. What is your absolute perfect creative space? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it smell like?
Dave Chappelle once said that he feels like the jokes come down from Joke Mountain and just come to him. He said, I go up on Joke Mountain, I just pick them out. And I feel the same way about songs. Every song is different. The cell phone helps a lot. These little machines that we have in our pockets. I used to carry around composition notebooks or write on the back of toilet paper or receipts or airplane vomit bags, one of my favorite. Because I took a lot of flights. I'd be on a plane all the time, and the inspiration would strike, and it's like the airplane vomit bag. That's what I'm up to. So I have a lot of songs written on airplane vomit bags. But the phones have notes and voice notes and all types of things you can do with the phone that help now. But I mean, the inspiration strikes at any time. For me personally, having a good partner, technical partner, my engineer Federico, he gets on my nerves. He does, because he's like a socially awkward dude, but he's the best engineer. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't, we hanging out, Federico, stop acting weird. But then he's so good at his job that I have to just deal with him acting weird. I do, he just came with me to Africa. You know what I'm saying? Colombian dude I had with me in Africa acting weird. I'm like, would you calm down, start acting weird around all these Africans? But then we get in the lab and he's just so good at his job. He's gonna be mad at me if he hears when I said all this. But just having him, he's been my engineer for 10 years, and our relationship is symbiotic, to whereas he's very good at Pro Tools, and he's very good at, I could say, he had never heard a rhyme before, and I'm doing the rhyme, and I'll say a word, and I'm like, punch me in at that word, he's able to he's able to anticipate where I'm going to go. So I mean, I can't overstate how much that's helped me creatively to have someone who can create this safe space. You know, we recorded the Black Star album that they mentioned earlier is on Luminary with Yasin Bey. We didn't record any of this album in a studio. It's all done at Dave Chappelle's house or in backstage at a concert or in a hotel room. Because I found an engineer that can bring that out of the studio. The idea that I had to, like, back in the days, paying $100 an hour, book a studio and hope the engineer understood what I'm saying. That all stifled creativity for me. But having a good partner who knows how to just, you know, the technology has really helped with that, where we can just record anywhere, and that's been very helpful. So any space has become a safe space to create for me at this moment. Oh, thank you. That's a good question. My name is Talib Kweli. Talib is Arabic as a Muslim name, and it means the seeker or the student. The Prophet Muhammad's uncle was named Abu Talib, and that's where the name comes from. Kweli is a Swahili name, and it means of truth and knowledge. So the name means seeker of truth and knowledge. My parents, like, I was born in 1975. You know, if you black, you're born in 1975, you got like a name like Jamal, Tariq, Khalil, something like that. You know, so I come from that era. Our parents were getting African name books. They were trying to be Afrocentric and cultural nationalist and all that. So I got one of those names, and I'm blessed to have that name. Yes. I'm not. I was raised Baptist and Christian, but when my parents chose their name out of a name book, I would have to ask them again, but I don't think that they understood the religious implications of my name. And I don't think, I feel like those, when I own a bookstore in Cuba Books, and we sell a lot of African name books, and what I noticed, at least years ago, I don't know if the name books have changed, but the African name books that we were selling 20 years ago didn't really differentiate between, they told you which region it was from, but they didn't say, okay, well, this name means a lot to Muslims, and this name means a lot to Ethiopians, and this is a Swahili name, and we didn't, just all the names from the continent got put in one book. So I feel like you got a lot of Tariqs and Talibs and Jamals running around here who were not raised Muslim at all. Yeah.
Any parting words?
No, I appreciate y'all. I think we should do things like this more often as a community. I didn't quite know what to expect, but I'm honored that my name comes up in these conversations, and I'm blessed to be a part of this. Thank you.
Here in the yak. Yeah, child. Hey, don't get me started.
Yeah, there's an artist named Nico Is. He's a Brazilian artist who was raised in Orlando, Florida. He just actually dropped an album yesterday. I would consider myself a mentor of his. Years ago, Bow Wow was running around telling everybody I was mentoring him. We hung out a couple of times, and then after we hung out, he was like doing press, and he was like, Talib Kweli is my mentor. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. Sure, Bow Wow. What's your name? Okay, well, to finish to answer the question, I've mentored a lot of artists. Nico, I mentioned Nico because he just dropped this project just now, and I just mentioned my children. Both of my children, Amani Fela and Diani Ashe, are extraordinary artists. And so with Javoti Media, I put a lot of focus into working with other artists. There was Jessica Care Moore, who's from Detroit. I wouldn't consider myself her mentor because we're the same age and we came in together, but I put out her music through my label. There was another artist, Kay Valentine from Chicago. So my focus recently has been on my own children. But I'm not saying no to you. I'm just challenging you to expand your idea of what mentoring can be. Like, I want to know your name. We can exchange information. I would like to hear your music. And I have no problem being in conversation with you and just being a member of your community. And I would enjoy doing that.
I would like to say that you get a gold star for that, because there are a lot of people, no, real life, there are a lot of people in the music industry, especially in hip hop, who say these things to the young children who are trying to get their foot in the door, at least for nothing else but information to become better at their craft, and people just brush them to the side. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to that young man and offer your assistance.
Well, I appreciate it. It's easy for me to say that to him here in front of y'all, but hopefully I'll follow up on it.
If you don't, we know how to say it.
Okay. I'm gonna lose the gold star. Yes. So what's it like working with Yasibe? It's one of the greatest joys of my life to work with Yasibe. I cannot overstate how much impact this man has had in my life, and what a joy and a pleasure it is to work with him. That's my mentor. He is my inspiration as an artist. He has challenged me. He has made me a better artist. He's made me a better man. And the work we do together, Yassine he's a movie guy, so he's more famous to me by industry standards. But a rising tide lifts all boats. And Black Star was his idea. That wasn't my idea. He came to me and said, let's do this group, back when neither one of us had anything. And so following his lead has been such a blessing for me. And even when, so our new album is called No Fear of Time. It's on a podcast platform called Luminary. And we've gotten a lot of complaints about this from working class people, because a lot of our fans are people who just want the CD. They don't want to have to download another app. They don't want to stream. They want to be able to buy the vinyl, and our album is not available yet. We plan on putting out the vinyl. But had it been up to me, there was so many bags put on the table for us to just put it out in a traditional way, where it would have come out and you could get it on iTunes and you could hear it on Spotify, you could hear it on Tidal, you could hear it on Apple Music. It's not available any of these places. And Yassine, there's decisions he makes that are based on morals, that the world looks at him and says, you're not making any sense. And then 5 years later, he looks like a visionary. And this is one of them. I mean, if you had left it up to me, I would have probably taken one in the bags 5 years ago. But we waited, and we ended up getting for an advance for this new project. The same advance we would have got for our major label. But with this, we have complete ownership. The album is not on Spotify. If you listen to Spotify, they pay 0.0001% of a penny. So for me to make $1 on a song, you as a fan have to listen to it about 150 times for me to make $1. People accept this because it's the primary marketplace. 90% of where people listen to music is on streaming. So people say, okay, I'm gonna prostitute myself in order for people to hear my music. And the interesting thing is they got a guy like Joe Rogan, who they paid $200 million to be on Spotify exclusively, and he don't make no songs. You know what I'm saying? So, but there is no musician that they paid $200 million to. And sometimes he says things that are not for us as well. So Yassine has been, I think, I can't overstate how much, like, that's one of the best things in my life, to have that brother in my life. And he's my family, and I love him.
Piggybacking off that, do you think conscious rap will be relevant again?
I mean, I think it's relevant now, like I was saying about Kendrick. When I look at the vanguard, it's not the people who are making empty, vacuous music. And if you survive, if you're a gangster rapper and you survive to 40, every gangster rapper over 40 turns conscious. That's just how it goes. You know what I'm saying? So if you survive, you start, I don't care if it's, look, I saw on Instagram today that Sugar Free got married. I don't know if you know who Sugar Free is. He's a pimp. He's a pimp. And Sugar Free got married. And Sugar Free said, I'll never get married. But you know, you survive some of this stuff and you start to change. You know, that's why That's why Biggie and Tupac is such a tragedy. Even 25 years old. Imagine if they had gone to be 40. I mean, Chris Rock says in top 5. Let's not make assumptions. Tupac might have grown up to be the dark-skinned dude in the Tyler Perry movie, throwing Jill Scott down a flight of stairs. You know what I'm saying? That's true too. But I think given the chance to grow, I've heard Too Short say, I feel bad about some of the things I've said. Jay-Z looks like me in high school and raps like me in high school. I used to have dreads, rap over Nina Simone samples. That's what he do now. Rap about family and stuff like that. That's what I do. So I just think give people the chance to grow.